Hi everyone, I'm Dom Griffin, I'm a film critic and you're watching the Armchair Auteur. This is an ongoing video series I do where we talk about new movies, old movies, screenplay analysis, television series reviews, that sort of thing. So if you like movies and you like movie adjacent popular culture and you like to see somebody pick those things apart, you're in the right place and you should consider subscribing. Today I'm going to be reviewing Respect, the new Aretha Franklin biopic starring Jennifer Hudson as Aretha Franklin and other people, and I like this movie more than I thought I was going to like this movie. It's got a ton of Oscar buzz at the moment, even though having Oscar buzz in the middle of the summer is usually not a good sign for a movie wanting to win awards. Mostly for Jennifer Hudson's performance, which is pretty good, which we'll talk about later. But I had I would say, neutral expectations for this film. But most of that neutrality went out the window when I saw that it was 2.5 hours long. I immediately had what I would consider to be a hostile attitude towards this film because there's just no way I'm going to end up liking a 2.5 hour musical biopic. I don't like musical biopics to begin with. If you've seen my video about the United States versus Billie Holiday, which I'll link in here somewhere, it is one of my least favorite genres of movies. It's such a hard type of movie to make, and even the good ones are always kind of hurt by just the generic structure that every one of them uses. And all of the things that I don't like about Respect are in that movie. So if you want to watch that video, you'll get a pretty good rundown of like what I don't like fundamentally, foundationally about the musical biopic genre. So there are just things about making these movies that just suck, and like I don't know how you can even fix them most of the time. So obviously those things are going to be present in Respect. Friend of the channel Mike Kelly asked me what I thought about this movie before I made this video, but before I could tell him, he pitched me what he thought the movie was going to be like. And he basically, in the course of like 3 minutes, outlined exactly how this movie is, almost scene for scene, very quickly and very nonchalantly, and that is sort of both a testament to how smart and media literate Mike is, but also how easy these movies are to put together because they're all the same. Condensing someone's entire life into a 2-hour movie is not easy, and the fact that this 2.5 hour movie condenses roughly the first 12 years of Aretha Franklin's career makes me think that a more targeted and a more intimate, a more micro, sort of like smaller version of the story could have been better. The first 30 minutes of the film covers her childhood, growing up with her domineering father played by Forest Whitaker. Then there's a 45-minute chunk following the failures of her early career under his thumb. Then there's a pretty sweet spot covering her prime, working with producer Jerry Wexler, played by Maron, as well as her abusive first marriage to Ted White, played by Marlon Wayans. The movie hits some high heights and then crashes down to typical second act bottom out, where Aretha finds salvation and reconnecting to gospel after abandoning the church for more secular music. But since it goes without saying that that overall structure and truncating someone's entire existence into a movie is like not my favorite thing, I'm gonna skip the whole part of this review where I would just complain about a ton of stuff. Because yeah, there's stuff to complain about, but it's stuff I would complain about in every musical biopic, and I just don't want to harp on it. So like I said, if you haven't seen that Billie Holiday video, watch that, and then you can come back here, because I just want to focus on the positives, because this is a movie that, despite its many irritants, I ended up having a good time during, and I feel like other people are going to have a pretty good time too, if they aren't as just viciously against biopics in general the way I am. Let's focus on the positives. One of the first big positives, Jennifer Hudson's central performance as Aretha Franklin. I think that it's a really good performance, mostly because of the fact that she's not going out of her way to try to be exactly like Aretha Franklin. In movies, specifically biopics, specifically when someone's playing a real-life person, people get really hung up on who looks exactly like the person, who sounds exactly like the person, all that stuff, and like that's not really that important. Jamie Foxx in Ray does a fantastic job impersonating Ray Charles, and the fact that he sounds just like Ray Charles makes people think that performance is really great, and it's like solid, but it's not like that spectacular. It's the fact that it's like a really good impression, right? When you watch, say, Michael Fassbender in Steve Jobs, he doesn't look or sound anything like Steve Jobs, but he really embodies Steve Jobs. He captures like the way Steve Jobs talked and the way he presented himself and the way he thought and the way he communicated. So I don't really care that he doesn't look or sound like him. It's not that important. Jennifer Hudson looks like a little bit like Aretha Franklin, and like the way she sings in the movie, she's able to capture some of the textures of Aretha's voice and some of the like characteristics of like her delivery and the way she sings. But it's still obviously Jennifer Hudson. Like, you're like, hey, we know her. That's Jennifer Hudson. We know what she sounds like. We know what she looks like. But it doesn't distract from the story because she captures the spirit of it. And that's more important, I think. I haven't watched the Genius miniseries that Cynthia Erivo did where she plays Aretha Franklin, where David Cross is the one playing Jerry Wexler instead of Marc Maron. That's kind of funny. But I saw a little bit of it when I was looking for like B-roll clips to make this video that you're probably looking at right now. And one of the things that stood out to me was that Cynthia Erivo kind of does the same performance every time she acts, and she has like the same sort of like classical, straightforward approach to character making. And what little bit of it I saw, I just looked at it and I was like, yeah, that's Cynthia Erivo doing Aretha Franklin. And here, even though I knew it was Jennifer Hudson doing Aretha Franklin, I didn't think about her. I got into the story enough to think about her as Aretha. Like, her central arc of being a woman struggling to find herself within the industry, within the arts, within herself, because she's always being controlled by the domineering men in her life, is very good. And like, there's a really strong through line of the sort of abuse she suffers and how that impacts her as a person and how that informs her art, and how her art then ends up inspiring other people and how it ends up moving people who have been through similar things. Like, there's a really cool thing there, and I kind of wish more musical biopics were focused on the person and their art and how their art made other people feel, because you could tell that story a lot simpler and more efficiently than a lot of these movies do. And this one, when it does focus on that, it does really sing. Really, all the performances in the movie are pretty good. Forest Whitaker as her father is pretty great. I mean, he's pretty great in everything. Marlon Wayans, who largely is a joke, but every like 10 or 15 years shows us that he's still a really good actor, is fantastic as her first shitty husband, who, like, Wayans does this thing where he like speaks, I can't recreate it because like I'm not good at voices, but he does this thing with his voice to sound like more distinguished and like a guy who would like read Jet magazine, and it's like one of the funniest fucking things. And it's not intended to be funny, it's just intended to make him more of the character. But every time he spoke in this movie, part of me was just dying laughing. And in my head, like my internal head voice when I'm doing stuff throughout the week lately has just been Marlon Wayans' Ted White voice. He just sort of like Black Don Draper. I don't know, it's really funny. His character's not funny, his character's a piece of shit, but like it really kind of stuck out to me and reminded me that I kind of wish Marlon Wayans did more stuff. Like, all the coverage for this movie about him being in it is just him in interviews talking about how he thinks it's time for a White Chick sequel, and I just wish that guy would aim a little higher, you know? Most musical biopics have a lot of scenes that are about performances, and this movie does the same. There's tons of big set pieces of Aretha performing important songs and important junctures in her life, and this does it so well because it focuses primarily on the way people are reacting to the music. I think about like Bohemian Rhapsody, which sucks, and it's a terrible movie, and if you like it, I'm sorry, but it fucking sucks. And that movie has these moments where like they're playing big Queen songs, and because you like Queen and you like listening to Queen, you kind of get swept up in them, but they don't move the story forward, they don't mean anything. It's just like, hey, it's like, let's have karaoke in the middle of the movie. You like Queen, right? And the moments in this movie don't play that way. It's not like, let's just play cool Aretha Franklin songs because she's a great singer and you came to see a movie about her. It's like, no, these moments, these songs happen in important parts of her career, and the way that audiences react to them is part of her arc. And yeah, I know some musical biopics do the same thing, but they're very broad and awkward and like not realistic. Like, you'll just have a big needle drop and like, oh, this song represents this era of their life. This doesn't feel like that. It feels a lot more natural. And it really runs home the fact that like the things she was putting into her music were her life, and that the things that people were spoken to from her music in their lives was from her life, and it creates this connection. There's all these really great shots of like people really feeling the music that she's singing, she feeling herself singing it, and that stuff works really well, man. Like, it's not easy to do. It's not easy to film fake performances with someone pretending to be a musician and making it feel as moving as actual concert footage, but like, it really kind of does. Ditto the thing that happens in all musical biopics, which is you have to have scenes of people recording or producing famous records. And usually these scenes are the worst because it's like, they're so unrealistic. Not to like harsh on Bohemian Rhapsody more, except yes, because I hate it. But the scenes in Bohemian Rhapsody, like where they're putting together some of their most famous songs, feel so artificial and fake and weird and shitty and cartoonish that they just suck and you wish they weren't in the movie. There's a few scenes like that here where it's, you know, Aretha putting together specific songs. There's like one specific scene in mind where she is putting Respect together with her sisters at the cover and like rearranging it and stuff. And at first, the way you see it in parts of the trailers, like it looks just like one of those Bohemian Rhapsody scenes. It looks like a joke. But the scene itself plays out a little bit longer. It's a little more lived in, and it's a little bit more organic. So like you actually get this sense of like, okay, this is artifice. I know that whenever Aretha did this, that it probably didn't play out exactly this way, but it's much closer to what feels like how it could have gone. And it runs into the movie kind of the right way, and it just really works. I don't know, like, I hate when that happens in a movie where you're like, this is not how that happened. If it's like a historical thing, like this is entirely too cliche and basic. And I really like that they pulled that off, and it really seems of a piece with what we see in the actual performance scenes, which is really cool. I've got to give big props to Lisa Soltami, the director of this film, who started out in theater. This is her first movie, and she really does bring a lot of, I don't want to say theatricality to the movie because it doesn't really feel like a stage, but I think that the way theater functions informs the way she tells this movie for the better in a lot of really good ways. And I honestly think that if this was something that had like a longer runtime, like if it had been like a TV miniseries or something, sort of like the Genius miniseries, or if it was a shorter movie that focused a little bit more on specific things in her life and didn't dilly-dally so much, I think it would be pretty spectacular. Just the way she chooses to tell the story and the way she works with the performers in it is very impressive. But I think the one thing that really makes the movie not quite fully work for me is the ending, because from all I know about Aretha Franklin, like her reconnecting to gospel music in that era of her life was like an actual, real, genuine, important thing. But in the movie, it just kind of happens in a real tacked on, it's time to wrap the movie up kind of way. Like, yeah, we're obviously going to end the movie with her singing Amazing Grace. And we're obviously going to put a bunch of subtitles on the screen telling what happens after 1972 in her life. We're obviously going to go into real footage of the real Aretha singing a song and stuff. And like, it feels very perfunctory, like very, it's time to wrap it up. And I think that it makes that chapter of her life, her reconnecting with like her religion and the music that informs that, feels fake. And it feels fake the way like Kanye West's recent babyface turn back to gospel music has felt fake. And I don't like that those two things feel the same when I know in real life they're very different. It just seems like a cheap ploy thing. And I know that that's not really what it was. I know that's not really what that era of her life was like, but that's how the movie makes it feel. And any movie that reminds me about the time Kanye West sang a song comparing his future ex-wife to Chick-fil-A, not a good look, not a good thing in my opinion. But all told, I did like the movie. I don't think it needs to be 2.5 hours long, but it's pretty strong. And I think when we get around to award season, I do think Jennifer Hudson should be in the conversation for Best Actress. I think she did really fantastic work. I don't think she will be. I think that by the time we get to the end of the year, there'll be a bunch of new like awards bait stuff that's going to completely, surpass this in terms of prognosticators' mindsets and stuff. But I was pleasantly surprised, and sometimes that's enough. So those are my thoughts about Respect. Do I think you should see it? If you hate musical biopics, don't bother. Just don't. It's not going to change your mind. If you're open to them and you like Aretha Franklin's music, you should. I think it's pretty strong. I had a good time, even though I didn't think I was going to, so yeah, that's my 2 cents. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you have not subscribed, please subscribe. Hit the little bell icon so you get notifications when I put out new videos. And if you have any thoughts or comments about musical biopics, about Jennifer Hudson, about Aretha Franklin, about whatever really, you can go to the comments below and we can have a conversation about them. So, thank you again for watching. Hope everyone's doing well, staying safe, being good to yourselves and each other. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.